Welcome to the Rotary Club of Tulsa. We're just like at Lake Wobegon. The women are strong, the men are good looking, and all the children are above average. And just like at Lake Wobegon, today is actually National Ice Cream Soda Day. You heard it here first, yes? Yes? So as we take a moment to greet each other and say hello, you might share with whoever you're visiting with on what your favorite ice cream soda is. So let's go ahead and say hello to each other. Okay. We got a great program in store, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Carl Vincent is going to lead us in our four-way test and pledge. Justin Jones is going to lead us in our invocation, and then Ed Monette will introduce our visitors. Carl.
It's our four-way test coming up on the screen. There we go. Please join me in reciting the four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Abba, we surrender our lives to you today without reservation and with humble confidence, for you are our loving Father. Set us free from self-consciousness, from anxiety about tomorrow, and from the tyranny of the approval and disapproval of others, that we may find delight simply and solely in pleasing you. Let your plan for our lives and the lives of all your children gracefully unfold one day at a time. We love you with all of our hearts and place all of our confidence in you, for you are our Abba. Amen.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the Rotary Club of Tulsa. We are glad that you are here today. Before I begin the introductions, I'm going to take a little personal privilege and remind our visitors that we are the home of the Henry P. Iba Citizen Athlete Awards that were held Monday night, and it was an absolutely outstanding event, and if you missed it, your loss. It was great, and Tricia and her crew did a good job. However, it was a little bit orange tinted, and so those of us from Soonerland kind of noted that there was a big OSU party, and that was wonderful and nice, and so for equal time, I thought I might take a little bit and tell you a little story. Now, for the last 10 years or so with Coach Gundy, the competition, Bedlam, has been quite good, exciting, but it wasn't always that way. So let me remind you, if right after World War II, November of 1945, Oklahoma State, or Oklahoma A&M, beat the Sooners, and had Boone Pickens, right after that game, stood up and walked at a leisurely 2-mile-per-hour pace, if he walked down to the equator from Stillwater, walked around the equator 10 times, walked back to Stillwater, sat down, he would have to wait another 5 years more until OSU won again. So you can look that up. So You're an engineer, you can do the math, I guess. Okay, we have, as is our custom, I'm going to introduce our host Rotarian and their guests. If they'll briefly stand so we could recognize you, we'll hold our applause till the end. Michael Turner has his lovely daughter, Megan, or beautiful daughter, Megan, beautiful and lovely. Phil Viles is hosting his wife, Cinda. Brenda Melancon is here with Janice Hall. John Halland has with him Amanda Jesperson. Chuck Wilson has two guests, his son-in-law, Adam Fleming, and Bruce Humphrey with Oklahoma Capital Bank. Debbie Stumps has Alexi Stumps with Williams. Sid Shupak has with him Matt Redmond with First State Investment. Regina Moon has Natalie Wilkinson with PCCT. John O'Connor has two guests, Kevin Hearn and Rafael Cruz, the father of Senator Ted Cruz. Mike has with him his lovely wife, Ginger, with Zia Communications. Let's give all our guests a round of applause. We have a couple of visiting Rotarians from Club 29 in Oklahoma City, also the guest of Phil Viles, Drew Edmondson. And from the Noon Rotary Bartlesville Club, Jay Dyer. Thank you all for being here. Please come back.
Thank you, Carl, Justin, and thank you, Ed. I did not know where you were going with that, but I appreciate that. Okay, welcome guests. If you are looking for a place to network with and get to really know Tulsa's business and community leaders, Rotary Club of Tulsa is a place for you. This would be a great place for you to get involved and serve the needs and make a difference in the lives of people here in Tulsa and around the world, and we would love to have you join us, so we hope you'll give consideration to that. Thank you, meeting volunteers. Let's show our appreciation to the volunteers who make our meetings run so smoothly each week. Yeah, done a great job this year as always, and a special thank you to our meeting sponsors whose sponsorships help defray the costs of our club. This week's sponsors are Scott Selman with Rich and Cartmill, and Becky Fields and Matt Hill with Mabry Bank. As always, we encourage you to do business with your fellow Rotarians. Thank you, sponsors. Okay, a few announcements. Yes, Monday night was an amazing night in Tulsa, Oklahoma with the IBA Awards. Here we are in the paper. Yes, absolutely. Tricia, after you chew your food there, sorry, it's just the way I do it. Can you and your committee please stand so we can really show our appreciation for a job well done? Yeah. Every year, Ginger and I leave that event, we're talking like, man, that was the best one ever. And this one was the best one ever. I mean, it just 25 years of getting better and better and better. This was a great one. Appreciate all the energy you put into it, and we'll look forward to hearing your report in a few weeks on where we are. So thank you. We have condolence cards on the table for our Sergeant at Arms, Charles Seacrest. His mother passed away this past Friday, so if you'll keep him in your thoughts and prayers, please. And Donna Mercier's mother, Carol Bean, passed away last March, and her memorial service will be held this Saturday at 10 a.m. at Boston Avenue Methodist Church. So if you have some time and go support Donna, I know she would appreciate that. Okay, next week is Steak Day. Make sure you RSVP so you don't have to share a steak with somebody. We want to have enough steaks. Not sure what the program's going to be yet, but we'll come up with something. Yeah. Bob McKenzie and his Race Across America team I don't know if you've been following them on Facebook, and if you're on, I get his emails and I follow them on Facebook. They're having a great time, doing great. I think if I'm tracking them right, they should be in Missouri, maybe western Missouri this week. So So keep Bob in your thoughts and prayers that they have a safe and just a great race. That's an amazing thing. 3,000 miles that they're racing. That's just crazy. Okay, getting ready for next year. Committee selection forms are on your tables. As we all know, the needs of our community and the world are really great, and they're really more than. It's hard to comprehend how much need is out there. And taking action through community involvement really just kind of results in victory after victory, and we make a little bit of headway on every victory that we do through our committees. And Paul Harris, in addressing the 1914 Rotary International Convention, some of you may have been there, I don't know, may remember that he said, "If Rotary ceases to be a responsibility and becomes a mere relaxation or pastime, its usefulness will cease." So how will you contribute to Rotary next year? Give that some thought and pick out a committee or two that touches your heart and get involved. And I'll look forward to working with you on a few of those committees next year. Let's see, we have one committee meeting after Rotary today. The Tulsa Police Activities League Task Force will be meeting in room 233. You know who you are. The back of the room. And we will not be meeting in room 233. We will be meeting in the back of the room. Thank you. Okay, we have a new member, red badge presentation. Michelle Hammond is our new member, and Tricia Kirkstra is going to introduce her. And John, again, thank you. Great job this year giving our orientation to our new members. Appreciate you.
Thank you, President Mike. Well, I am so excited to be introducing everybody to Michelle Hammond. Michelle's been in the hotel industry as long as I have been. Yes. Long time. So we met around 2007. We worked together at the Renaissance just for a little short time. So I haven't been able to work with Michelle since then, but we've gotten to know each other over the years a little bit because, Tulsa's a small town, and if you're in the same industry, you see one another at industry functions and serve on boards and that sort of thing. So I've always admired Michelle's professionalism, her work ethic, her long hours, her high expectations for her staff. She's just a wonderful hotel leader. She's currently the Director of Sales and Marketing at the DoubleTree downtown, and she worked at some of the other hotels previous to that. When I was going off the Oklahoma Women in Lodging Board, Oklahoma Will, we call it, I needed to nominate someone from the Tulsa area. And that was a couple of years ago, so I nominated Michelle because I knew she wouldn't just be a place sitter, that she would be an active member, and she's been doing a great job serving that board as well. And I love Michelle's story of how she got in the hotel business. So she's a student at Northeastern State University, and you have to declare a major, darn. And she's like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So she loved watching The Love Boat. Do you remember Julie, the cruise director? So Michelle's like, I want that job. I want to be a cruise director. So she got hotel management destination as her major, and she has never looked back since. Hasn't made it to a cruise ship yet, but she's served a lot of hotels in the Tulsa area. And she also is very active in our industry. So she has had leadership positions, of course, in Oklahoma Will, like I mentioned, Meeting Professionals International, we call it MPI, Hotel Sales and Marketing Association of Oklahoma, and a couple of others. But that's the hotel world. Her proudest accomplishment and what she's really, her love is her children. She's a single mother over 10 years now of 4 children and has seen them through the teenage years. There's one more going to college?
Have one left in high school.
One left in high school. Okay, so she has really helped them grow into wonderful young men and women. And in addition to raising these 4 children, they have hosted, she and her kids, 5 exchange students over the last 4 years. 3 girls from Spain, a girl from Brazil, 1 from Denmark, and so she's got the Rotary heart, even if it's not a Rotary exchange program, that she's hosting kids from around the world. She just loves learning about their culture and their family traditions, etc. When Michelle is not at work or taking care of her kids, her downtime is not going to fancy hotels. She goes camping in the Wichita Mountains with her kids. No phones, nothing like that, just to be with the kids. And then she also likes to play softball with her kids on the family softball team. So I'm really excited to have Michelle join our Rotary Club. She loves teenagers. So I know John told you about the 40 different committees you can join, but there's Camp Enterprise, which I know you'd love, and I know you love Rotary Youth Exchange. So please help me welcome Michelle Hammond, our newest Rotarian. Oh, and here's your pen. And here's your four-way test. Oh, and four certificates.
Thank you, Tricia. And Michelle, welcome to the Rotary Club of Tulsa. I really look forward to getting to know you better and working with you on some committees. You obviously have a lot of energy, so we will tap into that. Okay, let's see. Terry Heritage, an announcement about our great favorite school, Celia Clinton.
Thank you, President Mike. Just holler if you can't hear me. I have a very low voice. Good afternoon, generous Rotarians. This is my 11th year to beg you for donations for Adopt a Class. For the new people, we like to give $200 in gift certificates to Walmart so the teachers can buy the supplies for their classroom that they need for the children. It's a very poor school. There's a lot of people in here that go to Celia Clinton to help them, so you know it's a poor school. They don't have a wealthy PTA like where most of your kids or grandkids went. Make out your check to Rotary Foundation if you want a tax break. I don't know if you even get tax breaks anymore, but be sure and put on the check, Adopt a Class. So it's routed to our fund. I don't have a number for this year. I think there's 37 teachers, but you know, that's a fluid thing. And Charles reminded me of my very little joke that I say every year, that the teachers ask, well, what can I buy? Can I buy anything? Yes, anything for your classroom, except a 6-pack of beer. Thank you. And hope I'll hear you next year. I don't see, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you for all you do, for all the teachers at Celia Clinton. Next time we'll get you a shorter microphone, I promise. And we do know people, so we can make sure you get your tax deduction if you want it. So we can make that happen for you. But just doing some quick math, we need at least $7,500. $10,000 would be like really nice. Let's shoot for $10,000. We need to get that raised this summer, right? Over the next month or two, so we can get that in the hands of the teachers when they go to buy their supplies this next fall. Okay, Joe Moore, Vocational Minute.
Thank you, President Mike. And I'm Joe Moore from Moore Funeral Homes and Crematory and Fitzgerald Funeral Service. I'm a third-generation Moore family member. We have 6 locations. We've been in business since 1932. Funeral providers have 2 important functions. The first is to take care of the person, whether burial or cremation is chosen, in the most dignified and professional way possible. The second is to help families create ceremonies, funeral and memorial services that remember, celebrate, and honor the lives of these very special people. When we experience the death of a loved one, we have a wave of emotions which are collectively called grief. When we share the stories of what made them so special, we celebrate their interests, accomplishments, and achievements, and honor them for the differences they made in our lives, their contributions to society. We can start the process of emotional healing and start to feel a little bit better. Condolences freely given and received are beneficial to both the giver and the recipient. So when we share stories, express our emotions, give and receive condolences. We start emotional healing. I think that's what we all want for our families. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Did I throw you for a loop there, Charles? You're halfway out of your chair. It's Sarge time. Come on up, Charles. I skipped over Charles there. He was like, what the heck, huh?
Our
Sorry.
whole year's been about winging it, so why not
Why
wing
not
it?
finish it that way,
Yeah,
right?
51 weeks in, we'll keep winging it, right?
Yeah, we'll figure this out at some point, right?
Sometime in October, November. All right. Hey, everybody, how y'all doing? Good to see y'all. All right, we got a busy day today, so welcome to Sarge Time, and let's get it started. First up, our friend Bob Lundgren, $100 for his birthday. Bob, are you here anywhere? Bob,
There he
thank you
is.
very much. Appreciate it. Hope you had a wonderful birthday. He made it easy on me. Now, Don Worth is asking me a little bit more, so got to get my math out. Don Worth, $368. So we got here, let's see here, Lauren, 4 years old, Caroline, 2 years old, and Owen, 2 months, and his birthday. So that's going to be, let's see here, $300. Oh, wait, is that right? Oh, it's the whole thing. I would like $300 to go to Race Across America, Bob McKenzie, and $68 to Rotary Men of Note. So wonderful looking grandkids there, and that's actually our other Rotarian, Thomas Perrault, right there. So very cool. They've got that all taken care of. So again, happy birthday, Don. Thank you so much. Mary Staton, where's Mary? Where's my friend Mary? There she is. All right. Mary's always a fun person to be around, and this is one of those things where I had to kind of look and find out what does Mary really like, and apparently she likes animals and bizarre ones at that. So first picture, I see Mary over here with Cat Lady, I think. Is that Cat Lady? And the dog, no wonder the dog's turned its back on. It's nervous as all get out. And then, of course, there's Rumble from the Thunder. And then the last picture, I'm almost disturbed by it because that dog, is it possessed? I'm not sure. I've seen red eyes before, but I've never seen green eyes in pictures. So we'll get that photo lens. But thank you very much, $101. Thank you very much. Happy birthday. Now the next one, I got to get my glasses out because there's a little I don't know, paragraph here I got to read, but I first got to get the person's attention, so we're going to try something here. And it's been kind of a crazy week, but so I've only got one word, but do y'all remember the Police song, Roxanne? You do remember that? All right, here we go.
All right.
Trixie! If you guys could only see Tommy Lynn just now turn her head with a full mouth, Trixie is apparently Tommy Lynn's nickname. So Duff Weddle decided to go with this. I know, yeah, you're freaking out. Here we go. All right.
All right.
This is the lady that balances our budget. Makes us all feel a little bit more comfortable about those checks flying around. Here we go. Duff Weddle. Where's Duff out there? I know he's somewhere over here. All right, there you go, Duff.
There.
So I'm going to read exactly what he wanted me to say. Makes a donation for $150 to Polio Plus in support of Bob McKenzie's Race Across America. This donation is also in honor of our club's own cycling diva, Tommy Lynn Segrist. Now, there is a backstory about Tommy Lynn and the other life she leads when she is known as Trixie, the Queen of Cycle Zydeco. Trixie convinced, and we totally changed her name. You're not going back to Tommy Lynn, apparently. Trixie convinced Duff he should come down to South Louisiana this April and join 800-plus participants cruising through the bayou backcountry with stops in Lafayette, New Iberia, Breaux Bridge, and Opelousas in the 160-mile Cycle Zydeco tour. And what a tour this was, with Cajun gourmet delicacies and rousy Zydeco bands and revelry at every stop. And who was the belle of the ball at each dance hall along the way? Wow, we threw dance hall in there. Man, that's pretty rough. Our own beloved Trixie. And Duff says, thank you, Tommy Lynn, for inviting me to participate in such a captivating and electrifying experience and for the opportunity to witness Trixie in all of her glory. There it is. I'm sorry, Tommy Lynn. It's Trixie from now on
Trixie.
from everybody in here. So everybody just
Trixie
turn around and say, thank you, Trixie. All right, very good. Thank you, Duff, as well. All right, so I wanted to introduce you to Dave for my Sarge Pick of the Week, Dave. And this is Dave's last wave. Anyway, so I just thought he might like to know Dave for a little bit. So anyway, I'm done. Thank you
Thanks,
very
Charles.
much. You all have a great week. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you. Duff, thank you for introducing us to the true Trixie that we've all known and loved. All these years, we just didn't know. Just didn't know. So, oh, you're back. Oh. You just wanted more stage time. Be honest, yes. Okay, so, one of the cool things about that I've really enjoyed this year is getting to know so many people and your stories. And Jim Dunn has a story that I don't know how many of you know this, but it's just amazing. And Jim's one of these people that I've gotten to know this year. And I've always, he's kind of one of those guys you kind of admire from afar because he's so active in our community and stuff. So Jim earned his degree in engineering physics. Not just engineering, but engineering physics from the Colorado School of Mines, where he was named first team All-American academic team. Okay, so he's making 8.0 GPAs. Oh, we have ways of getting this information, yeah. Jim later earned a master's degree from Stanford University. And then in 1966, Jim began to work for TRW at NASA in Houston as manager of the Mission Trajectory Control Program, supporting the Gemini and Apollo space programs. Is that not cool? Isn't that amazing? I can't even hardly say those words. And then in 1960, so that wasn't challenging enough for him apparently. So in 68, he returned to Tulsa to run his family business, Mill Creek Lumber and Supply Company, which his father had started in 1934. Jim joined our club in 1986. He's been a great Rotarian. He's a Paul Harris Fellow and a Community Fellow. Please join me in welcoming to the podium Jim Dunn.
Thank you, President Mike. I didn't expect that. Before I get started, let me introduce Kim Prince. She's right down here. She is an associate with our guest speaker, Rose Washington. The subject for today is the Federal Reserve, and it's probably a very timely time to talk about this. 1 week ago today, about this time, Governor Powell in Washington announced a 25-point raise in the Federal Reserve discount rate, the 7th raise in the last 20 months. Our speaker today actually participated in accumulating the information that led to that decision out of the 7-state District 10 Kansas City Fed. Rose Washington is the chairperson of the Kansas City Federal Reserve Board. In that context, then she sets the agenda, talks policy, talks procedures, and then, in fact, coordinates a consensus among all the directors, all the economists, and all the interviews that have been conducted in the last, since the previous meeting, and builds a consensus so that the board of directors in Kansas City can give Esther George, the president of the Kansas City Fed, instructions on going to the FOMC, the Federal Open Market Committee that actually sets the interest rates. I think it's probably not surprised when I say that this woman, as a lay person of the Fed, probably has more influence on the policies and the procedures, yes, and in effect, the interest rates in this 7-state area. She has more influence probably than any other person. Rose lives in Broken Arrow. Rose has 2 children. Rose is the executive director of the Tulsa Economic Development Company, which provides capital for small businesses, particularly businesses that in fact encourage more employment or contribute to this community. She's been there 17 years and has probably operated, not probably, but she has helped 300 businesses in that 17-year period. I read her bio before I came up here. And probably, it's a very long bio. If I read it, it'd probably take 15 minutes. If you can get the bio, read it. There is an interesting parallel. This woman has been engaged in over 25 community associations, boards, and councils. She currently is involved in 11 of those councils, boards, and authorities. And rather than name them, the scope of those are, in fact, economic development and finance, job creation, education, healthcare, cultural organizations, as well as significant social issues in this community. We are very fortunate to have this woman in Tulsa. Okay. There's probably three things I can say about Rose. First of all, she's a very effective and efficient leader who can bring a consensus of opinions about monetary policy in this 7-state area. She is well respected among her peers. She was selected by the Board of Governors to be in charge of the Council of Chairs, which are the 12 Reserve Banks chairmen, to coordinate efforts at that level. 2, this woman is passionate and cares deeply about this community. When I mentioned those 11 associations that she actually works with, she just doesn't hang the shingle out. She actually works in that. And so we're very, very fortunate to have that kind of participation in this local community. Finally, and this is a personal note, I got to travel with Rose for several years, 10 times a year to the different meetings at the Federal Reserve. I was her chauffeur. And I learned a couple of things. Number one, she has gotten a great number of awards, very deservingly, for these activities that she's been in. But she's a very kind person, and she has a deep feeling for this community and a great big heart. So if you would, Rotarians, give a warm welcome to my good friend and the chairperson of the Kansas City Federal Reserve Bank, Rose Washington.
I thought one of the things Jim would tell you that I can't do is stay awake on a ride back from Oklahoma City. Jim, thank you for that introduction. Mike, thank you for the warm hospitality. And one thing you didn't say about Jim is that he also was a football star at the Colorado School of Mines. So Jim got it. And I won't say he was the starting quarterback, because that's not true. I am going to use my PowerPoint to sort of guide my conversation. Jim did introduce me. I'm Rose Washington, and first and foremost, I'm Executive Director of Tulsa Economic Development Corporation. Can't forget that. I have to give a PSO for the folks who pay me, because the Fed does not. So how many of you have heard of Tulsa Economic Development Corporation, or TEDC? Oh, wow, great. So we do business as TEDC Creative Capital, mainly because so many people confused us with being a city organization. We do have a strong partnership, and we collaborate closely with the city of Tulsa, but we are an independent not-for-profit that was created by the city of Tulsa in 1979. We are an organization that provides progressive lending to promising businesses, and so we don't attempt to compete with traditional financial institutions in our region, but we attempt to partner with them to make deals happen, to make magic happen as a community development financial institution. And We also engage in some development. I say we facilitate challenging development through partnerships, and that development occurs in underserved areas. You might have heard about a couple of our projects. The first I'll point out is the Shops on Peoria. So prior to my arrival in Tulsa, the top picture there represented a market called Banfields at Peoria and Reading in North Tulsa. About 12 years later, TEDC built the Shops on Peoria, which is now there and thriving, occupied by businesses and business owners who live in the community primarily and hire local folks. And then the Forge, you probably all are familiar with. It's a high-growth, high-tech incubator that was created by the young professionals of the regional chamber, and we partner with them to acquire the little red building between the BOK Center and the Wright Building Annex. Of course, we no longer have the beautiful view of the BOK Center because a hotel has been built there, Hilton Garden, but we're right there on the corner, and we serve as the home of the Forge at 3rd and Cheyenne. So at TEDC, I just want to remind you that we do have goals, and those include trying to expand the tax base and help businesses grow output. We do want to help improve self-sufficiency of just everyday folks and help business owners retain wealth so they can reinvest at some point in the future. And we definitely want to enhance economic stability in communities, particularly those that are underserved and serve as home to low and moderate income Tulsans. So in essence, we strive to empower people, enable businesses, and develop communities. So just as an FYI, we're not an equity investor. We don't give grants, or we don't intend to. We're not a bank, and we're not the government. But we are a partner in growing businesses in this local economy and helping them build the economy. We're a patient, flexible lender. We're an advocate of community development, and we're a voice of reason. For the bankers in the room, and for those of you who may be business owners, I will tell you that we do underwrite very similarly to a bank, except we're much more flexible on the terms. So the 5 C's of credit that you often hear about still resonate with us, but we are a lot more flexible, and capacity is critical for us. So I'm going to move into my conversation about the Federal Reserve, which is really why you're here, I think. And so I have to preface these remarks because I want to lower the bar that's been set by these two gentlemen. In the next few minutes, I just want to sort of modify your expectations for this time. And so as a member and chair of the board of directors of the Kansas City Federal Reserve Bank, I'm really not authorized, ordained, nor allowed to share anything that feels like monetary policy perspective or opinions. So I am not a rocket scientist either, so I can't talk about NASA and space. I'm not an economist, nor am I a policy expert. That's left to the president and the staff of the Fed, banks, and the system in general. In fact, I'm really here today as executive director of TEDC, who just happens to currently serve as chair of the Kansas City Federal Reserve Bank's board of directors. In the future, I'm certain, if Chad hasn't been here, our Oklahoma branch executive for the Kansas City Bank would love an invitation, and he is really the policy expert and the chief economist in our state. So instead of speaking on the proposed topic that some of you might have read about on policies affecting Tulsa, I am going to give you more of a Federal Reserve one-on-one that Jim alluded to. If you have questions that delve into monetary policy afterwards, I do have a special strategy that I love to employ, and I will share that with you later. Can I have a show of hands of all of the folks in the room who are finance people? That's any kind of finance. Okay, how about bankers? Now, I met a lot more bankers when I came in than the hands that I'm seeing. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Okay. How many of you have read the book, The Power and Influence of the Federal Reserve Jim Dunn, I bet you have. It's written by a gentleman named Peter Conti Brown. And so in this book, in fact, in the introduction, he starts with a story in which the Federal Reserve chair greets a newly appointed member of the Board of Governors of the U.S. Federal Reserve System. And in effect, he apologizes and he says, you know, I predict that when you go back home and introduce yourself to your friends and family as a governor of the Federal Reserve, they're going to think you're an administrator of the U.S. government's unexplored western forests. And I think there was a time when that story was amusing. The Fed used to be an obscure backwater government agency. The general public didn't really know what the Fed was about and probably didn't care much. But even for those who paid attention to the economy until roughly the 1960s, the prevailing view of the Fed was that the president, or monetary policy, was that the president and his administration were the first and last stop for economic policy. Central banking was in a far, far away land, maybe another dimension in the universe. And fiscal policy, the stuff of taxes and budgets and spending and deficits, was at the core. Bankers cared about the Fed's obscure activities. The rest of the country wasn't paying attention. That story used to work. It does not anymore. And today, it's not just bankers who are paying attention to the Federal Reserve. Over the last 30 years or so, and especially since the global crisis in 2008, the Fed has become a target of what I think is extraordinary scrutiny, some praise, and a lot of condemnation. Today, it's safe to say, though, that the Federal Reserve sits on top of the global financial system and really in the global economy like no institution has ever done before. But where public knowledge of the Fed's existence has improved, people know the Federal Reserve deals with money, not forest, but knowledge of the Fed's structure and functions is still not widely known. And that's not surprising. Even for me as a banking and finance major and graduate from the Mississippi State University, I would say that the organization is much more complex, probably the most complex organization in our country, maybe even in the world, with some of the most varied missions to accomplish really tucked inside. And the core questions about the Fed, how it's structured, who pulls its levers of power, and to what end are truly difficult to perceive. You bankers particularly know that the U.S. Congress established three objectives for monetary policy in the Federal Reserve Act: maximizing employment, stabilizing prices, and moderating long-term interest rates. The first two objectives are really known as the Federal Reserve's dual mandate. So over the years, the duties of the bank, the system, have expanded, and currently the system involves supervising and regulating banks, maintaining a stable financial system, providing financial services to depository institutions, the U.S. government, and foreign official institutions. The Fed conducts research, lots of research. They're pretty much a think tank, and they produce many, many publications. So I'm going to get through this and then get to some more details that you probably haven't heard of. The system has the unique ability, though, to influence every individual institution or government that interacts with the financial system. And I bet that's everyone in this office time and time again during the day. If you have a mortgage, if you have a car payment, if you have a credit card, if you have a bank account, the Fed has power over its terms. Every foreign government and financial crisis has felt its influence, and we have felt the influence of the Federal Reserve. Banks are much more deeply connected to the Federal Reserve System because of the Fed's oversight. And we all saw in the 2008 financial crisis policy failures, successes within the system, and I believe policy positions that likely stirred financial havoc, but also spared us from financial cataclysm. Many decisions of the power and structure of the Federal Reserve occur behind the scenes. And there is an ongoing battle for folks on the outside, for the viewers to glimpse into the detail. We see only what goes in, who comes out, and that something dizzying is happening in between. And so you really have to step behind those scenes to depict the Federal Reserve, its internal structure, its external pressures, and the technical and non-technical ways it makes many policies. Clarity is a challenge for many, even those who are economists in the room, those who work in the financial markets and in financial systems. Simply stated in words of my 14-year-old son, it's complicated. So the great thing about being in the 10th district of the Federal Reserve System is that we have a phenomenal bank. We have a phenomenal leader who is very well connected to the community, and I would say that Esther George, who some of you have likely met, is someone who can engage with anyone on the street, Wall Street, Main Street, down any suburb street, anywhere you go, Esther George can connect and relate. And so in 1913, President Woodrow Wilson signed the Federal Reserve Act of the Federal Reserve System. This was really the third attempt and the most successful attempt to create a central banking system in our country. There are 12 banks, as Jim alluded to, and there's a board of governors in Washington that make up the system. So you have really a public-private partnership that's accountable to but insulated from the government. So you know there are 12 banks. Any of you have ideas where they are? Where the largest concentration of those banks is? So here's a map of the banks, and you can see that a lot of them are back east, and you know why, because that's where our country started, right? And so I won't list them, but Kansas City is right in the middle of the country, and San Francisco is the Lone Ranger over to the west, and Dallas to the south of us. Jim and I have both served as directors of the Federal Reserve System through the Kansas City Bank. Each head office board has 9 members, and those members represent financial institutions who are member banks. They represent business. And then there are folks like me who are Class C directors who represent community, unions and others. I happen to be one of the members who is appointed by the Board of Governors, and our group of members, Class C members, is the only group that can run a search committee to replace a Federal Reserve Bank president. We're there not because of our monetary policy experience or knowledge or expertise. We're really there because our ears are to the ground in our communities, and we take information back to the banks, to the leadership there, to the economists, to help inform their final decisions regarding monetary policy votes. So I mentioned early on some of the goals and the mission statements, et cetera, and there's more than one of the bank. And in terms of monetary policy, the intent is to promote stable prices and economic growth. And so I mentioned earlier there's a lot of research, there's a lot of work with community leaders and organizations trying to get a pulse of the regional economy. And then there's quite an elaborate staff of economists who help the bank president sort of inform her decision and her recommendation to the Federal Open Market Committee, the FOMC, as it is famously known. This is a simple but complex committee. The structure involves 7 members of the Board of Governors. How many members are there right now? Any of you know? You can't say, Jim. So 3 of the 7 seats are occupied. 3 of 7 seats. There are 3 nominations that have been presented by the administration to the Senate, but none have yet been confirmed. and 4 of 11 Reserve Bank presidents that's currently serve on the FOMC. And right now, Kansas City's Reserve Bank president is not voting, but she may soon because the San Francisco Fed president is moving to New York. Once the seat is occupied in San Francisco, then Esther will step in a rotation and have voting rights again on the FOMC until such time as they appoint a new president in San Francisco. Obviously, you know the functions of the FOMC: to oversee open market operations, to set reserve requirements, to set ranges for the growth of the money supply, and really to direct operations of foreign exchange markets. Another big thing that many of the banks in the room can relate to is the bank's requirement to, or mandate to foster a sound financial system through bank supervision and regulation. And that's, I think, pretty obvious, the intent there, and I have to go fast. And finally, in terms of financial services, again, any money that you touch, any check that you write, any income you receive from the Treasury is likely produced through flowing through one of the reserve banks. We also are a strong community advocate. This says that the Federal Reserve Bank is much more than the government's bank. What I should have said is much more than you know. And so these banks, there are 12 in the country, are businesses, they're employers, and they're anchors in their community. And so I have just a few minutes. There probably won't be time for Q&A, which is okay with me. But I just want to challenge you. I want to challenge you, and what I want you to do is grab a piece of paper, and I'm going to trust you to keep score. And for anyone who gets 9 out of 9 answers correct, I have a special treat for you. And if you don't achieve perfection, then we'll modify. So there are currently how many state member banks in the 10th district? And this is the Kansas City Fed District. Anybody have a guess? How many? Okay, currently 193 state member banks. Any of you, if you got that right, mark it down. You get 1 point. Okay, how many depository institutions are in the 10th district? Well, if you got the first one wrong, you'll probably get this one wrong. Any guess? Anybody bold enough to share? Over 1,000, 1,266. Okay, here's a fun one. The average daily check volume is what million items worth an average of how many billion dollars per day? Anybody have a guess? 14 million items worth 22 billion a day. That's a lot of money. How many dollars are transferred through FedWire? 2.9 trillion a day. See, Jim? In 2017, the district's cash services operations destroyed how much cash? I have some too. $2.3 billion. And it's free. If you go visit the Money Museum, you can take some with you. It's a great exercise if you have little kids. You say, there's over $100 in the bag. You put the money together, you can go to the bank. So, stored value cards. Now, this is a new service, Jim, that's coming to Kansas City, and it is, in effect, the cash cards that military, that our Navy, Army, our armed forces men and women carry. And so that service is now moving to Kansas City, and we'll process all of the transactions, add the money to the accounts on behalf of the government. And so can you guess how many cards are used at, store value cards are used at how many U.S. military installations in how many countries around the world, and how many fleets of ships? Anybody know? No, you don't know. So 50 U.S. military installations in 13 countries and on over 125 ships. All in Kansas City, all a part of our district. Okay, do not pay is another responsibility of the Federal Reserve. And so if someone is getting Social Security and they're deceased, the bank has to halt those payments. If someone is getting a tax refund and they owe the federal government, the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City has to stop those payments. Can you guess how many do not pay apps? $25.1 million worth of prepayments in 2017. I'm moving through. Over how many folks walked into our money museums in the 10th district? Gotta go fast, I'm out of time. 90,000. We have museums in, larger museums in Denver and Kansas City. Okay, as an employer and a business, last year the bank awarded a certain number of contracts because, of course, they're doing business with vendors across the country. Can you guess how many of those were awarded to diverse suppliers and how many to small businesses? So 657 contracts, 22% were awarded to diverse suppliers and 42 to small businesses. All right, I'm wrapping this up. Have one more. How many of you have 9 out of 9 correct? Okay. So Jim mentioned that I chair the Conference of Chairs, and that is a couple of meetings a year of all of the bank chairs and deputy chairs who meet with the Board of Governors. Those there are only 3 there right now, and the chairman himself. So here's a parting challenge for you. What is this gentleman's name? I need his legal name. Anybody know his legal name? I need one person, because I have gifts here. Jerome Hayden Powell. Can someone say that and win these 2 gifts I have here? Someone, please. Karen Keith, will you say, who said that? There it is. Okay, great. Well, I hope you leave with information that you didn't come in with. I hope you know a little more about some of the things that the Kansas City Federal Reserve Bank and the reserve system does that you didn't know before you got here. If you want to talk policy and politics, I'll give you my cell phone. We can do that later. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you all for being a great audience.
Wow, my head's swimming right now. Thank you, Rose. Wish I'd had a pencil. I'd have taken notes. Those would make some great questions to ask at a party. We'll do that at the board party next week. Okay, but thank you for coming and spending time with us, Rose. You've got a very interesting job, and we appreciate everything you're doing in our local community to help build our community. Thank you very much. So a book recognizing your program today will be donated to our adopted school, Celia Clinton, and the name of the book is Women Who Dared, and you are one of them, so thank you. Okay, upcoming programs. Next week is Steak Day, last day of the Rotary year, so come. It'll be a fun meeting, I promise you that. We'll have some fun and wrap up the year. July 4th, we will not meet. Okay, we get the week off, and we'll come back and meet July 11th, so no meeting then. So now I encourage you to go out and share your Rotary story, and I would challenge you to consider sharing how you as a Rotarian are making a huge difference in our community, because you are. We were reminded of that Monday night at the IBA banquet. Tell your story. People want to hear what we're doing here, and don't forget to bring a friend to Rotary next week. We are dismissed.